You mean it's invalid? All right. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Conservation Conversation podcast number 4. I'm very excited. This is our 4th one, and it's great because we just started this and we tried to use a new idea to bring everybody together as a community, and it's been fantastic. I've seen so many conversations in here. And anyway, we have a lot to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about bottled water and biopiracy and what they have in common, which tends to be us. The balance between nature and business is often a sliding scale that we determine through various avenues, politicians, all kinds of laws, regulations. So anyway, we're going to talk about those two things and how we can sort of navigate our way through them. So thanks. Welcome back to the Conservation Conversation, podcast number 4. Let's get started. All right, welcome back, everybody. And let's see. Hello. Hey, Camilla, it's nice to see you on here. Thank you. Here, I'm going to actually turn my notes on so I can see what everybody's got going on here. So, all right. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining me. And so today, what I wanted to start talking about is basically, let's start off with a great quote from Gandhi. Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's needs, but not every man's greed. So, Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's needs, but not every man's greed. So here we find ourselves in a situation where bottled water comes in. Now, we have a lot of issues at play here. There's tap water complications, there's all forms of pollution on different types of water. And one thing that, the bottled water company basically scares you and says, do not drink your tap water. So we're going to go over bottled water today. We're going to go over different ways that you can be safe and keep your family safe and know what's happening with your water. I've got a couple great websites that can help you. See what the water quality is like near your house, and you can sort of make determinations. So, all right, so today we're going to talk about, bottled water first. So this is the first, so kind of an example here. They're just pulling water straight out of the ground and bringing it right to us. See, there we go. So as you can see, they go through the aquifer and it just comes right out, and they basically boil it and then they put it in. Right now, one of the main reasons why this is a really important topic is that in Florida, they're having an issue where Nestle is trying to now pull 1 million gallons from Ginnie Springs, which is part of the Santa Fe River. And as we're talking about Florida, I want to say hi to all my friends in Florida. I know there's a lot of activity down there. I hope everybody's safe. Been keeping an eye on the hurricane. And, if anybody's out there watching, just let us know how your weather is. Let us know how it's going down there. And let us know how you're doing. Let us know everybody's safe. Speaking of Florida, I wanted to talk about one of my friends and one of the viewers before, Mitch Allen, who had said that he would try Meat-Free Monday. Now, this is something new for Mitch, and so he's going to try it for the next month and then come on the show and talk to us about what he thinks about it. So it's going to be great to get a very honest opinion of how somebody feels trying Meat-Free Monday. So, and Mitch, thank you so much for being open to that. And I love that, that's something that Colleen and I think Camilla also had brought up as an option to start. So, yes, boycott Nestle. I agree. They're a mess. So anyway, let's get back to this water issue. Now Nestle, I put together a little bit of information on them. Now Nestle's CEO he called the idea that water is a human right very extreme. Now, these guys, think about this. I mean, just from a pollution aspect, 3.5 million bottles are made every day. They use 125 tons of plastic resin pellets. That is an amazing amount of plastic waste. Now, we've gone over plastic before and how microplastics work their way into all the different fish, all the different food, all the different ecosystems. So this is a huge problem. Now, again, they're requesting to pump over 1 million gallons a day. Now, 1 million gallons a day, if you want to put that into some kind of a perspective, right now, Governor DeSantis in Florida, because of the hurricane, has set aside 1 million gallons of water as emergency water for communities that lose their ability for drinking water. So that's, and they want to do that every day. They just want to pull that amount every day. And that's the amount that the governor of Florida thinks is necessary to help all the communities that are about to get flooded. So an interesting comparison there. Now, to give you an idea of how much bottled water there is, Nestle sold 7.7 billion worth worldwide, and they have 100 factories in 34 countries. So they are pretty unstoppable, unfortunately, and they're everywhere in the world. They have over 50 different companies as well. So there we go. Hey guys, there we are. I'll bring back the chat. As you can see, I shrunk everything a little bit, try to make the chat a little bigger for everybody. So hello, Sylvie. Thank you for joining us today. And Camilla, it's always great to have you on as well. Okay, so as we get back to the bottled water, so what are they doing? They're taking our natural resource. They are pulling it out. They are putting it through the most minute amount of processing and then releasing it back to us. Now, the trick of it is that Nestle, although they say that the idea that the freedom and access to water is extreme, they actually pay nothing for the water. It is a natural resource and nobody pays for this. What happens is they can take as much water as they want. They just have to pay for the processing and the plant. But they don't pay the city or they don't pay anybody for the water that they take. So you've got a whole issue where they are just pulling all the natural resource while all these other industries are dumping their pollution into the rivers, where you're having all these other issues. You've got sickness up and down the rivers. You've got all forms of illness. So you've got our natural waters being poisoned while they're taking them out and then trying to resell back to us because we're afraid of our own environment. A lot of people wondered if Flint, for example, was intentional. Perhaps, the idea is that all of our water structures fall apart so that we all have to buy water. And we saw this in every part of the world where we traveled. We saw it in the deepest parts of the Amazon. We saw it up and down the Mekong River. There's just plastic bottles everywhere. And if you do think about that number that we were talking about before with Nestle, they make 3.5 million bottles a day, and that's just one plant. So that's a pretty intense amount of plastic being added in to our everyday consumption. And one thing that Nestle did say that's interesting is that it's a very competitive market. It's a very competitive market. So what they need now is they need to, I'm going to show you how big the market is projected to be. And this is global bottled water market. So as you can see, by 2021, they're expecting it to be over 300 billion worldwide market. So it's growing, and it's growing in a massive exponential amount. But the good news about that is that it's very competitive now. So what they were saying is they have to follow consumer trends and consumer desires. So what we have now is we have a voice. They cannot not listen to us. If we buy boxed water over plastic bottles, or we start all demanding in mass that they eventually give us, something a lot healthier, say like glass or recycle or anything like that, we will be able to maybe have our voices heard now, which is something new. They haven't really done that before. So they're in the position where they have to listen, and we are in charge, and we have to remember that we are the only reason they exist. If we just all stopped buying bottled water, they wouldn't even exist. So, we, as much as they try to put it on us, oh, we have all the plastic pollution and we're throwing it in the rivers and this and that. It's an unnecessary thing. Plastic bottles are unnecessary. And 3.5 million a day in one plant is just, so it's hard to imagine. Now, the reason that they tend to like to scare everybody has to do with the drinking water situation in America. And I think worldwide, I don't know a lot of other areas how they do this, but what we have is this fantastic website you can go to, and Aaron Brockovich tested a lot of the water around America. It's for chromium-6, which is chromium-6 is I'm going to put the link in there for you so you can go right to it on the website if you'd like. Chromium-6 was the discovery that Aaron Brockovich had made. So they tested all this water, and as you can see in the interactive map, you can zoom in a little bit, and you can find your area, any area that you live, and you can also do it by zip code. So I'm going to try mine here and see and how it looks, and then you can go anywhere and get all the information. So it's an amazing website, and all these areas have been tested. You zoom in, as you can see, chromium-6 testing, and it'll give you all the information. So San Bernardino County, all 28 water systems tested positive for chromium-6. So anyway, I recommend going to that website, checking it out, looking at your tap water, because look at how your tap water is treated by your local municipality. That's really the main trick right now. Each municipality offers different water. And I mean, the crazy thing is, Nestle, all these companies are all taking it from the same water sources through the rivers. The rivers are the same places where these companies are dumping their pollution. And again, what they do is they dump a concentrated amount through what are called outfalls into the rivers. And what happens is their idea is that it will dilute by the time it gets to a major water source. And by the time it gets to people, it's no longer dangerous, but the levels that they allow out tend to be unregulated. And this is especially true in Florida. So that's just, one of the many aspects. Again, we're allowing these companies to take our natural resource that we have a right to, pollute it, send it back in, contaminate our lands, and then try to ask or force us to go drink bottled water as our only solution. So check out that Aaron Brockovich map. Check out where you live. Check out what the water quality is like. Determine if that's water that you want to drink from your tap. And if it's not, look into a couple different systems. Fightforzero.org. Stella Bailey was on the show before, and they have an excellent resource on there. You can go in and learn all about different water filtration systems and really determine what you want out of your water. But one thing I definitely recommend is do not drink bottled water. You don't know if it's any cleaner. There's no proof of that. There's no way to prevent these bottles from ending up in our environment and eventually in our blood, as we've learned with microplastics. So, there's nothing good at all can come from this bottled water. And, Florida residents already have so much going on. They already have a lot of battle ahead of them to keep their waters clean as is. So, this is something that they really are fighting for right now. And it's something that, you can also help. There's a lot of ways to get involved with what's happening down in Florida. And what I'm going to do is actually give you a link to this website, which is a change.org petition. And this one is great because it's going to not only this the Water Management District, but also to the governor and also to Nestle. So have your voice heard, sign this. They already have 113 out of 150,000. So anything you can do to add to that voice, or go check it out, see if you like what they have to say. And, there you go. I just put the link in there for you. Oh, hey, Michelle. It's nice to see you on here. Michelle, bottled water companies making a killing in Florida this week. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Good point, Michelle. With all of the upcoming hurricane, there's been this big rush to go buy bottled water, go buy bottled water, go buy bottled water. There's not going to be any water, and they really have tried to, tried to scare everybody. Now, a lot of people that I know that live in Florida a long time have systems all set up. They're all prepared. A lot of people that are newer there, they don't know what to do yet. So they do need to buy bottled water. And, let's face it, the only problem with bottled water is we're all kind of stuck in one sense that there's not much we can do about it. We live in a world where bottled water is something that we're not going to be able to really, to fight. It's what we have here. And this is where we are. So it's something to think about, though. We can make changes. The more that we try to fight these bottles, the more that, like I said, we, focus on paper water or water filtration systems. They will go where the money is. And remember that we have power in our purchasing. So, Linda says, save milk jugs. See, there you go. Even if you get stuck with a piece of plastic, it's better that you can recycle it yourself and do as much as you can with it, and try to reuse it over and over and over, because that's one way that we can every day make a difference, and every day change everything a little bit. Oh, and guys, I'm very excited. I wanted to share with you also, this is good news. I'm going to put this in here we go. But Ball, the company that makes those wonderful glass jugs, is now, instead of the red Solo cup that is part of every, frat party, high school party, I guess kids are more advanced than ever, probably middle school parties, but those red cups have been sort of an institution for a lot of us. We all remember those things. But Ball is now releasing sustainable aluminum cups to replace it. And they're totally recyclable, and they're fantastic. So if you're going to have a party, you're going to have a kegger, you're going to have a few friends over, or you just want something that you can use once still, but it's environmentally more friendly, please go check out. I was so happy to see that today. Go check out that aluminum sustainable cup. Carrie Bowers. And Carrie says hardly any water or anything on the shelves, even on the West Coast. Now, Carrie, do you have a well, or do you run off municipal water? And what do you do to prepare for the hurricane? You might actually have some tips that a couple other people might be able to help out with here. So, I'm curious what, if Carrie has anything to offer to that. And yeah, just imagine the amount of bottled water they sold this time. And, the bottled water company loves disaster. So this is the problem is, I don't know if you guys are familiar, there is a thing called disaster capitalism. And it does actually go back to the shock doctrine that we talked about in the last podcast. But disaster capitalism is when there's the opportunity within these types of problems. And bottled water is one that we see. Nestle actually opened a plant in Pakistan because the majority of their water had been contaminated by pollutants through different corporate companies. And so they use it as a way to open it. And as many people are aware, Nestle's actually privatized certain areas around the world where villages have become privatized. In Africa, in Niger, they get money from the IMF, and it's a stipulation. It's a stipulation for them to get their money that their water has to be privatized. So the push for privatization of water is a global, it's a financial push. And again, it's us being manipulated in a multitude of ways in order for them to make money from us. Okay, so Carrie's on well water. Now, okay, buffering bad on my end. Oh no, Linda, I hope it's going to clean back up. Oh, so here's the other thing. With all this weather headed into Florida, I can't help but start thinking about those gypsum stacks that Mosaic has all around Florida. Now, if you're not familiar with a gypsum stack, they're basically about a mile high, and they contain some of the most contaminated water in the world, which is left over from the chemical processing of phosphate. Now, they're so bad, they're not actually allowed to do anything with it, so they have to hold it in these mountains. They're not allowed to dispose of it. And eventually they become what are called Superfund sites. And Superfunds are where the EPA has to step in with your dollar and clean up. So anyway, but when you think about it, they're open. They're these huge open pools of the most contaminated, toxic water that the EPA knows about. And now they're going to get whipped around by the storms. They could possibly get hit by these high winds. They're going to get flooded and mixed into the floodplains. They're going to end up in the river. So it's another aspect of pollution where they say that they can contain their pollution, but pollution can go beyond anyone's fence. And this is the problem, the inherent problem we have, where we have to balance nature and business. And again, we are that barometer. We're that adjustable barometer. If we say no more, eventually it's no more. But it takes a lot of us, and we have to fight together. Carrie says, fill anything, all my water horse tanks, my old milk jugs, 5-gallon tanks. I saw somebody else say to make sure to fill your bathtubs in case you need to have water to flush and the electricity goes out. I saw that tip earlier on another place, and you can go to Mosaic and a couple other spots on Facebook for helpful hints on how to get around that. Camille says a little bit not okay, good. Category 5. Category 5 is amazing. I mean, we are seeing unprecedented weather, and now that's. I was reading a projection according to the water, the International Water Consortium or whatever, the guys that all sell the water. They're expecting water shortages in around 40 to 50% of the worldwide population in the next 20 years. So if we keep going at this pace and we just think of bottled water as a convenience, not as a plague, then we are going to end up actually with a plague in all of our waters, and we're going to be stuck. And we're going to be only able to drink what they offer us. And just imagine that, the day where you can't drink out of a stream or out of a river or out of your tap. And a lot of people already have that existence, and they have to have bottled water because there are no other alternatives. So, you can go to, again, change.org. There's tons of fantastic plastic bottle petitions you can sign. And again, remember, check out that Aaron Brockovich website that I put up there. Check out your drinking water. Think about chromium-6. Think about what's in the water. Think about getting distilled water. If you have to, but remember that even the plastic that they're using is leaching toxins that are getting in your blood system. We have microplastics in our blood system. It comes from the fish that we eat that have eaten all the microbeads and microplastics in the ocean. And it also comes from our water intake. And, aside from that, plastic is in all of our food products. So we are eating a lot of these toxins without realizing that our containers are leaching them in. Even plastic Tupperware can leach harmful chemicals into your food. So consider a long-term idea of sustainability. Hey, Tanya. Hey, Tanya is another animal rights activist working over in Europe area, and she's about to actually go start a journey to help us see animal rights and animal struggles around the world. So she's awesome, and if you can, just click on her Facebook and go check it out. She's got a whole thing going on there, and it's great because that's what it takes. It takes us as activists to just say, let's talk, let's remember that our voice is here, and which kind of brings me to my next point. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who's Iroquois. And he said that they have to think 7 generations ahead before they make a decision. So they have to consider the impact 7 generations ahead of any decision they make. Now, this goes for environmental decisions or in a relationship as well. So just imagine that, 7 generations ahead. Now, if you think of bottled water 7 generations ahead, and remember, this only started in the 50s. So, they didn't think 7 generations ahead. But they've left us in a situation where we have no choice. So, that's the one thing is sustainability. No matter what we encounter in our lives today, we are kind of walking this tightrope, where a lot of us are forced to make very sustainable options because we've let these industries run out of control. And now we have all kinds of plastic issues, recycling issues, poisoned issues, and this is from 50 years of deregulation and letting these companies do what they want. And again, we are all a little bit more on the line now. So I implore you to think 7 generations ahead. It's an amazingly beautiful philosophy. I'm sure a lot of you are already aware of it. I'm not sharing something new to, and if I am, fantastic. Please Google it, share it, and consider it, because we have to think about sustainability in all ways. And if you do think 7 generations ahead, you'll never use another plastic bottle in your life. So this brings me to my next topic, which I'm excited to talk to you guys about, which I've never heard about until recently, which is biopiracy. Now, the reason the biopiracy comes up is we are watching the jungles burn. We're seeing the Amazon on fire. Everyone is very familiar with that story right now. And it is destroying tons of biodiversity. It's destroying tons of our CO2. And according to a lot of people that monitor this, it's only going to get worse. Now, what's interesting is that the 3 areas where biopiracy is the most common are also where there's the most fires at the moment. Anyway, the next few podcasts will go over those, including our next podcast is going to be on the Amazon. And we're going to have a special guest, Richard Rasmussen, from, if you haven't seen the documentary A River Below, I highly recommend to watch it. It's about the pink dolphin's struggle to survive in the Amazon, and its struggle is the same as our struggle on a bigger scale. So it's an amazing documentary. Highly recommend to watch it. But anyway, the question that we end up coming down to is, what is biopiracy? So biopiracy is basically the use of natural medicine or the use of indigenous knowledge and what they'll do is they'll go in and they'll learn from these tribes. They'll take the bark and they'll leave, and then they'll go patent the molecules from it. Over 25% of our medicine that we use worldwide comes from just 10% of the plants that we know about in the Amazon jungle. So, so that is a massive amount. Now, the reason that I'm bringing up biopiracy today is after the last documentary that I finished, which is still a little bit under wraps because it's got a few surprises in it that I can't let on to yet. But some of the studios have been asking me, what's your next project? What's your next project? But I decided I'd share it with you guys first instead of sharing it with them, because the reason that I do these documentaries is because of all of us. I mean, we are all in this together. We're all asking the same questions, and we're all want the same answers, and we all need the same information. So I wanted to share with you guys my project first before I started doing all that stuff. And as a matter of fact, I'm just going to talk a little bit about it today. But this week, I'm going to be releasing the full information on it. But it is going to center on biopiracy and the exploitation of the Amazon jungle and how the fires are affecting it. Now, one small thing to think about, and this is for me, I have cancer. They can't quite, it's undiagnosable. So my cancer is undiagnosable, which means that the cure, they obviously haven't figured out yet. Now, over 70% of chemotherapy drugs come from plants, come from the molecular structure of plants. So it's possible that the cure to my cancer is out there, but we just don't know yet because we haven't figured out how to approach that or what to ask. And so as these Amazon fields burn at a football field per minute, we're losing a massive amount of knowledge. Yeah, sorry, it's just really devastating when you think about the potential out there. So now we're going to talk about biopiracy. So biopiracy is, again, now there's another term that you have to become familiar with called bioprospecting. Now, bioprospecting is very different than biopiracy. So, for example, bioprospecting is when a company goes into the Amazon with full permission, finds a molecule or finds something that they want, and then takes it back and works out a deal with the tribe, and then the tribe gets profit sharing on the patent. Biopiracy is when they patent something that they've taken from the jungle and that they've taken from indigenous people without providing them with an agreement. Now, the problem is all these agreements are very secret. So it's hard to learn and find out what's happening with a lot of these people. But as an example, Monsanto told, and they gave an incentive, a bonus incentive, and said, anywhere you travel, grab some bark, grab some plants, bring it back, and if it's something good, we'll give you a bonus. Because you just never know what you're going to run into. So they were asking all of their employees to go out there and just bioprospect and become biopirates. So, hey, Paula, oh, it's so good to see you here. Hey, oh, that's awesome. Paula's great, and Tanya's here. Scott Countryman is on as well. Category 5 storm is an active, guys, more likely warmer ocean. Oh, there we go. This is going to be interesting. So Scott says, and I'm just repeating this for the iTunes podcast, so people that aren't watching the vidcast will know. Scott says, a Category 5 storm is more likely warmer oceans. Oh, let me say that again. A Category 5 storm is more likely warmer ocean surface temperature caused by increased GHGs as a byproduct of human activity that are supercharging these storms and increasing the frequency and intensity of wildfires on land around the planet. Perhaps tainted drinking water would explain why there are so many climate emergency deniers and hardcore GOP members in Florida, despite the state being the highest risk areas from changing climate. Dope. So, hey, Heather. Heather's another conservationist up in Bremerton. Heather is working on restoring this amazing old tugboat with Captain Dave called the Dominion. And I'm going to put a link at the end or Heather, if you want to put a link in so people can know to go check out what you guys are doing, because that's another thing, the more we can preserve, the more we can move forward, the more we understand how people built boats back in the past and had practical solutions that didn't require plastics and didn't require all these harmful products to us. These things ran on glass and wood. So there's a lot that we can learn. We already have an amazing mass of knowledge that for some reason, as a collective, we've thrown it out and and decided to let companies tell us. So that's what's so great to see about all you guys on here today, because everybody has this amazing input. And Scott, that is a great point. You know, there's a lot going on. You know, there are so many places that have issues with the climate now, and we are seeing crazier things than ever. Like I said, Indonesia is on fire. Siberia is on fire. The Amazon is on fire. Africa is a different kind of fire, but it's a fire. The difference between Africa and the other fires are happening in rainforests. And rainforests are not built to understand fire. They're not used to having fire. Nothing is designed in a rainforest to survive a fire. So it's absolutely devastating. And, you know, we're seeing these fires. And again, we're going to go into this in the next episode as well. But, you know, these fires are land clearing, and it comes down to monocrops. So I just want to throw out there to everybody, if you think about it, a lot of this is land grab, and they're burning these areas for monocrop. Now, unfortunately, there's good monocrops like cacao, but it's bad for the forest. But it's a popular monocrop, and it becomes an issue in how do you live ethically? You know, we all have ethics that we want to live by, and those vary by all of us, but all of us here together share one thing, which is the knowledge that what's happening right now is not okay, and what needs to happen next needs to come from us, and it's organic. Oh, hey, Vicky. Nice to see you on here. Vicky, another great activist down in Florida. Vicky, how's it going down there? How's your weather? Paula, I wanted to ask how you guys are doing as well. Yes, so these land grabs. So what we are having is an issue where, again, you have to think about what you're buying, you know. For example, in the Brazil, when I was in Amsterdam and all these different places, one of the things that they sell everywhere is called Brazilian beef. And when they say Brazilian beef, it means it's good quality. That was back before I changed over to vegan. But it's a quality. And so beef cattle is a major thing in Brazil. So a lot of these guys are going for agribusiness. They're doing this for beef or soy. Now, over 90% of the soy that comes from the Amazon goes to feed the beef. Over 90% of the soy goes to feed the beef. So it is true that we live in a worldwide economy, and we have to think about all of our actions and all of our solutions. So again, I recommend everybody go to Boycott. And Boycott is an incredible, I think we went over this in the last podcast, but I'd like to talk about it again. Podcast is a way to vote with your wallet, which is something that we all need. And I'm going to show you guys right now. This is Boycott. Now, this is an app you can put on, and I love it. I'm going to do a full review on here soon. But this is just their website version, boycott.com. And it allows you to live and purchase things by your ethics. So if you click on like the campaigns, for example, depending on how you feel, I mean, and again, there's animal welfare, civil rights, there's criminal justice, of course, education, human rights, environment, of course, being mine, save and support the bees, say no to Monsanto. So just say you click on say no to Monsanto, for example, which most of us would want to do. There's 213 people using this information. So you join it, and it on your app, it actually allows you to scan the barcode of any product. And if Monsanto is involved in any way, it's going to warn you. It's an awesome, awesome thing. They don't know I'm talking about them. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, guys. It's just an honest, to goodness, great recommendation. I love it. Let me put it up here for you guys. So it's changed the way that I do my shopping, because, you know, there's so many tricky aspects. And again, we all have different ethics that are important to us when we purchase things and use that. Yes, Vicky says weather is okay in Florida, Bahamas. Pray. I just wanted to send a heartfelt warmth out to everybody in the Bahamas. I have a lot of friends down there, and I know that It's been a very disastrous event for them. Yes, Camilla says we destroy our own planet to produce the foods that are killing us, and that's a great point. For me, my personal experience is that I, after getting cancer over and over and over, and the doctors not being able to figure out anything about my cancer, what I did was I stopped eating meat, and it actually allowed me. Everything stopped growing super fast. Now, I don't know exactly what the chemical problems are, but all I know is that since I've stopped, my health has been great. I'm very happy. My camera hasn't been. There we go. But everybody has a different body need. So again, we're actually going to do a podcast soon about veganism and is veganism sustainable. So anyway, guys, we have a lot of cool podcasts coming up, I promise. Between the Amazon, then we're going to go to Africa the week after, and then we're going to go around the world, and we're going to go check out and see what's happening. Because again, this is conservation conversation. I'm really, really happy with how it's developed. I love it. So it's really exciting to see so many people sharing so much information. And guys, if you haven't gone to the Conservation Conversation Facebook page, please go there and like it and add your links, share your information with us. Remember, all of us together have this amazing collective knowledge, and that's what we need to share. We need to be our own version of Google. So I think that's all. It's just something to think about. If our politicians let us down and our businesses let us down, we're all we have. And remember, what we have is we are important. We are the majority, and we are a moral barometer that has to contain the companies to make sure that there's a balance between business and nature. And that brings me back to biopiracy. So biopiracy, again, is when they take something out of the jungle or from indigenous knowledge and do not fairly compensate the people that are there. So a great example of biopiracy that may come as a bit of a surprise is Chanel number 5. Now, Chanel number 5 gets its scent from this plant, the Aniba osiodora. Now, this plant, they discovered the smell, and they were able to use that in Chanel number 5. And of course, they did not make any agreement, and nobody has made anything from it except for Chanel. So it's a very good example of biopiracy that everybody can sort of understand. The next one is neem oil. Now, neem oil, they tried to do a patent. This private company tried to do a patent on neem oil, and eventually it was granted at first, but then it was struck down because they were able to prove that in India they've had knowledge of the results of what neem oil does for thousands and thousands of years. So it all comes down to patent law, and I'm very excited because I've got a good friend that is studying, working on patents, and they're going to join us on a future podcast as well. Because what's happening is, again, like for example, in Brazil, what they'll do is they only have a few companies that are allowed, that are given permits to bioprospect. So the company in Brazil who's say a university, they're allowed to bioprospect, right? So they're going to become friends with an American company. Or, for example, and this is a very controversial one, the National Institute of Health here in America, our National Cancer Government, cancer.gov, partners with somebody in Brazil. And what they'll do is they'll go in, but they'll go in as an NGO, and they'll go in as a nonprofit, and then they'll study different, techniques from the indigenous, because that's the thing, is it requires the knowledge of the indigenous elders to use these drugs properly and to find out which molecules and how and why. So they have to take that information from those guys first. And that is where they're stealing. They're stealing. And it comes back to what Nestle's doing in Ginny Springs. They want to steal natural resource. These guys all want to steal natural resource and sell it back to us at an insane amount. Now, another, something that amazed me when I was in the Amazon, I was in Peru, and we were deep in the forest. And, our guide said, hey, come over and scratch this mushroom. And we ate a little bit of mushroom, and it was actually paracetamol. And so paracetamol is based on this oyster mushroom that grows in the Amazon and Peru. My mind was blown. The original paper is made from leftover wasp nests, all natures. And hey, Jeremy, thanks for joining us. And oh, hi, Barbara. It's always good to see Barbara on here. Us humans need to make it right. And you know what, Barbara? I think you're absolutely right. And again, I always bring this back up. Guys, don't let all of this bum you out. You have to remember we live in a golden time, and we can all make a change as long as we're knowledgeable about what we're doing. And we have an amazing thing with the internet, and we have a way to make communities now. Just like Jeremy's group, Nosaic, Nosaic on Facebook. Nosaic is a great way where communities can combine, talk about what's happening, talk about permitting, talk about everything that affects their water quality. And that's the whole thing. We have to remember that, we are the ones, and we shouldn't let profit come before us. And, when you get this biopiracy, not only does it destroy nature, but it destroys a lot of the people that live in these areas. So there's mass amounts of suicides occurring now amongst a lot of indigenous populations. And one thing that really caught my interest is that a lot of them are soy growers. And the way that there's basically one company that runs it, and people don't make very much money. So, blaming the low-hanging fruit's not going to get anybody anywhere. Blaming the guys that have to survive, that barely get to eat every day because they're soy farmers or beef farmers, they're not the problem. The problem is the appetite that allows these companies to sell on a mass quantity. We have to change behavior to change action. They say cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. But the moment we start to protest, they say cause and effect doesn't work. Cause and effect does work. So remember, your voice makes a difference. One thing that happens is a lot of these, I see the signal's getting a little low. Hold on. A lot of these farmers that commit suicide will use the same pesticide made by Monsanto that they use on the soy, which, by the way, gets fed to the beef, which, by the way, gets eaten by the people. This is so dangerous. All you have to do is drink it and you will die. And unfortunately, it is sadly the cause of a lot of soy farmers' suicide. So they're being poisoned in ways we don't even know yet by these horrible pesticides. The ones that can't survive commit suicide with the same pesticides that are ruining their lives. And all of this comes through biopiracy because the tribes are not given enough resource, and they're not given their due respect, and they're not given the money for their knowledge, and their people are just coming in and taking and pulling it right out from them. And biopiracy is high in the Amazon, obviously. Think about the Amazon. The Amazon is being taken in so many fashions, right? We know about the wood, we know about deforestation. We know about Amazon superfoods. Everyone's had acai, everyone's had cacao, people have maca root. People go for superfoods. So we understand that sense of it, and we try to look for fair trade. Again, use boycott.com, use Boycott the app. Make sure that you're getting a fair trade food. But biopiracy is a way that they steal from our natural environment without anybody noticing because it's invisible. Nobody's buying. Nobody knows what they're buying. When you buy paracetamol or aspirin, you don't know you're buying a patented molecule from a mushroom that comes from a tribe who is now struggling to survive. So, there's a lot at play here. And again, we've allowed these companies to grow. We have, for 50 years, assumed that somebody benevolent was at the wheel. And as we grow older as a society, we start to see this more. And as the internet grows, we can combine more. We can understand more of what everyone's going through. And, this is where this is all changing. And we're at a tipping point. We are at a tipping point. I've heard anywhere between 5 to 20 years, we are going to start to run out of resources. Now, remember, the bottled water community is counting on it. They are counting on it. They're projecting it. They're causing it. They're taking water and dumping back their pollution. They want to replace 1 million gallons of usable water a day that could go to your municipal system with their pollution that they end up recycling out. So, it's like we've lost the plot, right? But we've allowed this to go on for 50 years. We've been fooled. We got fooled by ads. We talked about that famous PSA in the 70s with the American Indian crying, the American Indian who's not an American Indian, who is an Italian man pretending to be an American Indian. Everything about that ad is fake. The idea that we're the problem is fake. The problem is the plastic pollution requires a plastic solution. It requires the makers of plastic to be forced by us, again, the barometer of what's acceptable by these companies and what we will buy. Now, I know boxed water is insanely expensive, and I find it a shame. It goes back to disaster capitalism. Even the good guys are kind of, okay, like a lot of people like the Tesla, but who's going to buy a Tesla? Sure, fantastic. Get it down to an affordable, cost that all of us can own one. Then you make a difference. Having 6 celebrities on a Tesla is not going to change the world. It's great to show that there's a possibility. And that's just my opinion. You guys are more than welcome to, to counteract that idea. But I think it comes back to how accessible is it to everybody. That's what makes the difference. Now, one thing that I do want to mention here is Preemptive. Now, Preemptive CBD. Preemptive is the sponsor of this show. They've been on board since podcast 1 because Preemptive is all about trying to find organic solutions to problems. Now, Preemptive, again, if you go to Preemptive, you are going to, and use my code, ERIK15, ERIK15. I'll put it for you guys. If you use that, you'll get 15%. It's going to last forever. So it's a code you can use whether you want to get some CBD now or later. But CBD is interesting because I asked my friend Paul that owns it. I just added this thing in there. And thank you, Camilla. I got to say, they don't sell these. Yeah, I was lucky to get one of these. But now, again, I started using CBD when my radiation would give me so many terrible muscle spasms. I would actually curl up in a ball and just fall on the floor in pain, like a muscle contraction. I couldn't stop it. It happened to me in public. It happened to me in business meetings. It disturbed everything. And the doctors wouldn't help me. They said, your potassium must be low. Eat bananas. They told me to counteract radiation, eat bananas. Well, as you can imagine, the bananas didn't work. And I eventually stopped radiation. That's why I gave up my radiation treatments. And the whole time I was in so much pain. And my friend Paul, who owns Preemptive, said, use CBD. And I thought, there's no way a plant can counteract what I'm using chemically. Little did I know that most of what I was using chemically came from plants to start with. Again, mind blowing, right? Like, I didn't know that all this, and I don't know how much you guys know or how much is new information, but it's incredible that so much comes from our natural world. And so much of it has been stolen, actually, which is super crazy. But so I started using CBD. And CBD changed everything. It allowed me to get my life back. My mom uses CBD. Everybody I know, and I encourage everyone to use it. It's non-hallucinogenic. It's non-psychoactive. If you don't like to get high, you're not going to get high. You're just going to feel good, but you're not going to be taking in those medicine. And remember that Bayer is owned by Monsanto. Bayer is owned by Monsanto. If you trust Monsanto, you will trust Bayer. If not, I recommend, if it's legal where you live, use CBD as an alternative for pain. I use it for my daily pain management. I'm just saying that because CBD, I asked Paul, do they have a patent? Just like neem oil or these other exploitative biopiracies, and it turns out CBD does not. The US government patented CBD so that it would be open source knowledge. So now we have this amazing time where people are all jumping in with CBD, and we're seeing a very organic, holistic kind of revolution. And people are thinking in a bigger picture. People are thinking 7 generations ahead. People are thinking, what goes in my body? People are thinking, what's sustainable? Do I need this? Does the earth need this? What can we do? And again, a lot of it comes down to what you buy. What you buy and how you go about it every day. There are certain things you cannot avoid. You need a car. I understand that. You can't be unrealistic, but you have to at least be open to remembering that, the next time, you have a choice, try to make it. I don't know if you guys have paper bags at your local store. Use paper bags. And again, it comes down to this idea, or use reusable bags. Do anything to avoid those stupid plastic bags there. They're even the reusable ones they charge you for. Just try to avoid those. Bring your own bags. Bagoo is a great company. They provide a lot of fantastic bags. We use them all the time out here. They're great. And very excited to say, coming up soon, we're going to have the conservation conversation reusable shopping bag. And we're going to start offering that as a way to kind of help promote some stuff coming up. So anyway, I just want everybody to think sustainably. Like my Iroquois friend said, think 7 generations ahead. Remember that, the world around us, the natural world, not only contains the history of the earth, but it contains the history, our collective knowledge. And that can be filtered through the indigenous, and it's important that they're not stolen from. And it's important that we do our best to keep these plastic companies out of there. Because if you think about it, Nestle's not doing anything to the water. They're just a plastic producing company. So, if we reframe our way of thinking about that, it's a good way to, to think, well, what kind of other alternatives are there? Refillable bottles. A lot of my friends will bring their own refillable bottle. They might be made out of plastic. You might not find a fully organic refillable gym bottle, but use that. And again, use that Aaron Brockovich website. Check your local water. Make sure that its chemical is okay. Make sure you know what you're ingesting. We used to take water for granted. I mean, we should. It's a natural resource. It's everywhere. But these days, we have to be really careful. And we have to know what's happening out there. And like I said, I think bottled water that's the main scourge. If we could stop bottled water, it would remove, just imagine, it would remove 3.5 million plastic bottles a day. And that's 1 out of 100 plants. So if one plant makes 3.15 million, imagine how many plastic bottles are being made every day just by Nestle. And if all of us just stopped using it, they'd have no choice but to stop. So remember, as we think forward, don't feel overwhelmed. Humans have, of course, become the problem, but humans are also the solution. So our decisions, what we demand from people, what we demand from companies, This is how we can make a change by getting together, talking, all of us sharing our information together. You know, guys, please fill in any links that you can down there to help us, give us more resources to good water information, anything about bottled water. Try to resist, like I said, resist as much as you can. Try to think sustainable, think recyclable, think more in the future. Think 7 generations, the family you'll never get to meet or the family you need to save today. So, oh, Camilla says Nestle. Yeah, much to learn on them too for their abuse of dairy cows. Yes, and I believe Nestle also has a major issue with child labor. If you go on Boycott, actually, I checked like a Crunch Bar or something, and Nestle had violations of child labor. They had violations of animal abuse. They're just Nestle themselves. I mean, you know, they're kind of smart. They're staying a little under the radar. Like Monsanto takes all the heat, but Nestle's just as bad. And here we go. So listen, everybody over there, I hope everybody in the Bahamas is doing okay. Our thoughts are with you guys. I hope everybody in Florida is safe and everybody's doing okay. And I hope everybody has the water that they need. And, you know, obviously in this time, we're all thinking about bottled water. So don't forget, go to that website that I linked up to, sign that petition to try to stop Monsanto, have your voice heard by Nestle, the governor, and the water management. And let them know what you think about letting Nestle take your water. What happens there sets a precedent for now and for the future. And yeah, and again, next week, guys, don't forget to join. Next week, we're going to have a very special episode. It's going to be starting 1 hour later, but we're going to have Richard Rasmussen from the documentary A River Below on here with us. And he is going to tell us what's happening on the ground in Brazil. And as well, I wanted to talk about BioPiracy today. This week, I'm very excited. I am going to share with you guys first my new documentary, and we are going to start letting some information out on that, and I want everybody to get involved. So just know that it's BioPiracy is one of the clues. And oh, hey, there's Bruce. Hey, Bruce, how are you doing over there? Bruce, I know, is very health conscious and as well has taken a big turn. Bruce, are you vegan or vegetarian? We'll give Bruce here a second to answer while I do that. Carrie, yeah, bought beer instead. There you go, Carrie. That's the water you can trust. Excuse me. So yeah, you know, I think it really is, you know, it's great to have this group on here because, again, everybody thinks holistically. Everybody thinks about their life and how they live affects not only their body, but the environment around them. So, okay, Bruce, I'm really curious. Now, you've gone vegetarian. I as well went to vegetarian for health. You know, I went for health reasons. Did you transfer over for health reasons? And if so, what have you noticed since you changed? And also, do you find it to be health or ethical? Sorry, that may have been a lot of questions, but I think a lot of people on here are very interested in going vegetarian. A lot of people hear about vegan movement. A lot of people hear about vegetarian diets, plant-based diets. There's a lot of debate over all of that, how it can help the planet. I know that Camilla has a lot of information. Camilla, if you have any links you can help by putting up there as well for people where they can find resource on learning more about how going plant-based would affect everything, whether it be the environment or their body. Please share this with us as well. And yeah, and then I'd love to hear from you, Bruce, and see what your thoughts are on that. You know, because it's amazing. I'm seeing a lot of people changing over and a lot of people are finding ways to live healthy. Now, not everybody, you know, feels okay when they stop eating meat, and I'm not here to put anybody in any form of judgment. I'm just putting it on the table in a non-judgmental way. I know that, you know, there can be a lot of clashes sometimes, you know, between vegans and non-vegans. And I think we need to build bridges and not walls so that all of us figure out a way to move forward together. Bruce said, did it for the animals, but I've noticed an improvement with my digestion. Fantastic. So there we go. So Bruce has made a move for ethical reasons. And Bruce, that's amazing. You know, I don't know if you heard earlier, our friend Mitch in Florida is actually, and he's never thought about doing this before ever, but he's going to try Meatless Mondays and give it a try. And the amount of animals that are saved, even if you just stop eating meat 1 day a week, and there's a huge campaign. You can go on Google, look at Meatless Mondays. There's tons of information out there. It's a great way for people to pull it back. I was actually talking to my friend Andrea in Romania, and she was saying that they fast quite often. And when they fast, they use no animal products. So it's very interesting that in their culture and in their religion is based a vegan fasting that's meant to help cleanse. So, you know, even if you look at it from another angle, there's a lot of cleansing that can happen when you start to think in a sustainable fashion. Yes, I agree, Sherry. A lot of people do want to be healthier and they don't know how. And it's very difficult. Hey, Michelle Fuller. Michelle has a lot of medical knowledge. Michelle, if you want to throw anything in, I'd love that too. And, you know, Sherry, it's difficult. You know, when I first went vegetarian, you guys have to know, I ate nothing but meat. I ate nothing but meat and potatoes like my dad had taught me. I hated vegetables. So my first thing I ate was pizza, and all I ate was pizza for 6 months. Terrible way. I hated vegetables. It was really different. Now I can't stop it. I love every vegetable. So it's hard because also when you stop eating meat, you lose certain aspects of things your body does need. And if you're like me, your body can get them from other things. For example, protein's a big one. A lot of people are concerned about it, righteously so. I'm not here to proselytize, but the amount of protein you're told you need is way higher than your body actually needs. And it is true that broccoli has almost the same amount of protein as steak, if not more. That's where the debate comes in, whether it's slightly less or slightly more. Doesn't matter. It's there. You can get it from almonds. You can get it from all kinds of things. So I think that there's a lot of health aspects. For me, it was like my clock got turned back 10 years. I'm 46. I feel like I'm in my mid-30s now. I used to wake up really exhausted every day, and I realized it was my body was trying to process this stuff. A lot of processed foods that I just could not eat. Another thing is you have to think about fish. It's another topic we're going to get into later. And yes, Michelle says, Meatless Mondays works. I don't have enough knowledge about that, but I'd love to see respectful info. And yes, you do need to do it safely. You need to do it safely. You need to make sure that your body's getting the right nutrients. Now, I used a very common one, Forks Over Knives. They have a cookbook. There's the Veganomicon, which I like. Veganomicon, I mean, honestly, guys, it takes a little bit more effort. That is true. But it's important. If you think about it, we've lost touch with preparing our own food, which is like a ritual that's built into our stories since the beginning of time. They're built into our rituals since the beginning of time. And there's something that we've lost a disconnect to. So going back into preparing your own food is a fantastic thing. I love the time it takes to make a nice salad or to, come up with my own idea. I eat mostly raw, actually. Now, Sherry, what is avocadia? Is that? Now, yes. Now, let's see. Meatless. Okay. Now, Michelle said safely. Vicky said don't eat fish. It's really hard. Fish is always pushed as a healthy option. But I will say, if you Google things like fish farms, you'll learn that tilapia is prone to lots and lots of diseases. Now, one thing I want to tell you about fish. I don't eat fish. When you get a piece of fish, sometimes you see those little brown dots in there. Those are worms. It's gnarly, right? They get heated up and they become those little brown dots inside the white. And I used to like halibut steak. And when I found out all those things were worms, it grossed me out. And then I started learning what's in the water. Then I started learning about microbeads and everything else. Bruce, yes, I am vegan. Now, when I was trying, I was vegetarian, but it's because I didn't have any options. But I was in like 20-person villages, and they keep chickens. They don't make them for meat. They tend to eat things like monkey and other local meats, dog, like other areas. But I would eat eggs because they did come from grass-raised chickens, and otherwise I only had rice. Now, a lot of vegans would be definitely mad at me for that. But I believe that if you go to these remote areas, you can't tell these people to be vegan. I mean, there's so many villages that survive on fish and rice. So it's a very heavily debated thing. Being a vegan, this may come under some fire, but it tends to be a Western trait in the sense that we have the power to choose what we are at the grocery store. You know, obviously these little villages with people barely surviving don't have that luxury. So they're not like, you know, but they also don't have high cancer rates, and they don't have cholesterol issues, and they don't have the same things that we have. They're not worried about navigating food. They eat what they can. There was places we went in and they wanted to trade us apples and watermelon for bread or meal or rice. So, you know, I think veganism is a wonderful concept that everybody that has the option at the grocery store, if you can make a conscious choice, you know, look into the ways that animal agriculture does affect the world. And Camilla put up the challenge22.com, which is great. And you know, Michelle says, glad I don't eat fish. There's no debate in my mind. And you know, Michelle, there's another aspect of fish that people don't really talk about, and that is fish fraud, which we're going to do a whole podcast on. But it's very dangerous because a lot of companies are using fish fraud as a basis of their foundation. One great example goes back to the pink dolphin in the Amazon. What happens is all these catfish in Colombia are so popular that they've actually been fished to where the fishery is now collapsed. But in Colombia, they want to continue getting that particular catfish called Pitacatinga. So what they do is they take a catfish from Brazil that eats human flesh. It eats dead flesh. It's carnivorous. And people in Brazil don't even eat this catfish. They're like, that's disgusting. So what they do is they kill pink dolphins, they cut their bodies up, and they use them to attract as many of these catfish as possible. Then they transfer these catfish to Colombia, and then they're sold as this other fish, and nobody knows any of the difference. But they're eating something that's eaten decomposed flesh. So fish fraud is crazy. And fish fraud, not only that, but they will send tropical fish to cold fish watering environments. So let's say a chef, it knows what they're doing and they think that they're working with a cold water fish. Well, if they're working with a warm water fish, they may have toxins in it that need to be prepared or specially handled a certain way. And you're going to find that these cases where fish really hit people and they die and they have issues come because a lot of times they are eating the wrong kinds of fish. And, you know, if you live in a warm water climate, your body has natural protection. So be very careful, friends. Fish is one of the least regulated industries. If you're not catching it on your own, if you are catching it on your own, what's in the water you're catching it on? Like, just, I don't know if maybe we need to rethink the fact that if the fish are really the way to go anymore. Punch out circles and sell us scalps. Actually, Linda Brown, you are 100% correct. It's disgusting, but scallops tend to be from rays, stingrays or bat rays, and they will put a cookie cutter into their wings. It's terrible. They'll put a cookie cutter in and they sell them as scallops. I'm not making this up. This is why, as a friend of mine who used to be a diver for abalone taught me, that was one of the tricks, that they tend to use skate rays or anything like that. So guys, if you do eat seafood, diver scallops should be different sizes. If you get scallops and they're all the same size, you're eating a stingray or a bat ray. And it's not what you think. And again, it's fish fraud, and it's been common for 20, 30 years now, but we're getting health results as a result of it. So this has developed into a very fascinating conversation because, this is what it all comes down to. And again, it comes down to bottled water, the biopiracy. What are we eating? How do we interact with nature? Who's bringing our nature to us? Is it our nature or companies bringing us our nature? So, we brought our own nature until the 1940s, until the Industrial Revolution, really. But then after that, everybody was farmers. We made our own food. Things were more localized. Then things became nationalized, then internationalized, then agribusiness grew. And here we find ourselves today going, we don't know how to steer the ship, but it's too big to steer. That doesn't make any sense. We need to rethink and understand that our relationship to nature needs to become more one-on-one. And anyway, it's just something to think about. And guys, again, think about that Iroquois. Think about the fact that think 7 generations ahead. And remember, Gandhi said, Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's needs, but not every man's greed. So, let's take the power back. It's in our hands. Thanks everybody for being here today. I can't wait to see you next week where we go heavy into the Amazon. Let's go heavier into animal agriculture, soy, and you can continue to comment on here. Let me know other topics you guys want to talk about. Let me know what else you want to cover. Please feel free to continue to add links. And it seems like to me after talking today, we're going to have to do a whole episode on vegetarian and veganism. And I wanted to thank Bruce for putting in information and helping people think about being vegetarian, as well as Camilla for providing a couple great links there. And, everybody else to come in and join the conversation today. So it was nice seeing everybody, and we'll talk next week. Thanks for joining the conservation conversation. It's our world. Let's talk about it.